Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. Tonight is Thursday night, September 21st. By the time you see this, it'll be Friday morning, September 22nd. I decided to do this video late tonight because it's one of those times if I don't do it now, I won't release a video this weekend. I just got finished watching Thursday Night Football, and the Giants couldn't keep up with the 49ers. So that was kind of expected without Saquon Barkley playing. But NFL's been fun so far this season. We just started week 3, so let's see what happens. I'm looking forward to Monday Night Football. My Rams are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. I heard Joe Burrow might not play. I don't know how true that is, calf injury, but we'll see. We're approaching one of my favorite times of the year in the next couple of weeks with the baseball playoffs starting, and we've got the NFL going, and the NHL is actually starting tomorrow, preseason games. My Kings are in Australia. They're playing the Phoenix Coyotes tomorrow night or Friday night. And then the NBA will be starting soon after that. And I love when there's those couple of weeks out of the year that all 4 major sports are running. And it's just a fun time to be a sports fan. So I'm looking forward to that. Hobby wise, I'm going to talk to you a little about my history. I was going to, well, first of all, you guys have heard me talk the past several weeks that I was going to go to 3 card shows in 3 weeks in a row. Burbank was a couple of weeks ago, was 3 weeks ago now. Long Beach was 2 weeks ago, and last week was Palm Springs. And I was hyping that up that I was going to catch all 3. But I wanted to give you a brief history about my card collecting career when it comes to card shows, just because I had a total epiphany this past weekend. A lot of you know, I've mentioned this in the past. When I was growing up, I was 14 or 15 years old, and I worked at a baseball card store, one of the first baseball card stores in the San Gabriel Valley, which is just outside of Los Angeles. And the owner of that baseball card store decided to put on baseball cards, a local baseball card show. This was my first experience ever, being 20, 30 tables. Everybody was selling cards. And the neat thing was in 1979, 1980, I think even 1981, there was a lot of vintage flying around. I remember seeing 1953 Satchel Pages and 1957 Topps Brooks Robinsons and Hank Aaron rookies and Willie Mays 1953 cards. It was just a fun time to be a collector when it came to card shows. And card shows were really fun. So we would go once a month to a card show. As I grew older in my 20s, we started seeing actually more along the lines of, I would say more like into my early 30s. We started seeing the weekly card shows that I used to like to enjoy. And I found myself going to card shows every week. We have a show that exists to this day called Frank and Sons, which I don't really consider much of a card show. It's more of a toy or a gadget show, but there's a couple of card dealers in there. I go once in a while, but way back a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago, I was going every Saturday. And back then we also had mall shows, which is something we don't have out here anymore. But we used to have mall shows, and I would go all the time. I remember buying a lot of hockey cards. And we had our bigger shows. I talked a few weeks ago about the National, and the National back then would show up every few years out in Anaheim. I went a few times. But by then my interest, I was getting a little, I wasn't buying many cards back then. Sometimes, I think one time, I think for sure once I went to the National just to get an autograph, just to get Sandy Koufax's autograph. I had no intention of sticking around to buy cards. That shows you how I had changed, how much I've changed since then. But then things died down card show wise out here, and I would say in the last 10 years I've been buying a lot of cards online, and sometimes I hit some card stores, local card stores, but things had kind of died down, at least in Southern California, when it came to card shows. And I remember during right before COVID hit, I discovered the Long Beach Card Show, which isn't perfect because I've always told you guys it's a coin show with the back corner being devoted to cards. But it was fun, and I liked getting cards and seeing the vintage stuff. But once COVID hit, and then I started watching YouTube, I remember thinking, gosh, I would like to return to a life of going to card shows all the time. When this COVID thing ends, I want to start going to card shows every week. But you've heard me complain in the past, especially in Southern California, we didn't have many good card shows. So um, when I was watching on YouTube, I always noticed people going to shows every week, people that live out east, people that live in the Midwest, people that live in Texas. And I'm like, oh man, we don't have anything like that out here. COVID ended, and all of a sudden we started getting a lot of little local card shows. And I was so excited to get out of the house and so excited to go look at cards again that I would go. There was a show in Westminster, there was a show in Brea, there was a show in Yorba Linda, there was a show in the Valley, there was a show in Thousand Oaks. And every time I went to these shows, I seriously, I lasted 10 minutes. It was filled with Justin Herbert and LeBron James cards. No disrespect, that's just not me. So I started getting really bummed out. Like I said, I'm watching YouTube, and I'm seeing people hitting up really fun card shows. I'm not even talking about the national. I'm just talking about these little high school shows in the middle of Missouri or Ohio, and you know people coming home with Warren Spahn cards and Lou Burdett cards and Mickey Mantle cards. We didn't see anything like that happening here. Finally, though, looks like SoCal kind of hit the modern times along with the Long Beach show. We had now we have the Burbank show. We just had the third one, and I'm looking forward to the fourth one in February. I've been to a couple of great shows in Temecula. There's a show in Del Mar. There's going to be a show in Pasadena in November. There's going to be a show in Ventura. I might actually head out there for that. But as I get now, here's where I'm showing my age, though. Things are starting to catch up with me. I told you, I'm going to Burbank, I'm going to Long Beach, and the following weekend, going to Palm Springs. I had a good time at the Burbank show. I bought cards, I saw my friends, I was walking around all day. Great, fantastic. The following week, Long Beach shows up, and I live right by the Long Beach show, and I can get in for free. So I'm like going, I'm gonna go. I'm tired, but I was still tired from the week before from Burbank. But I go, I'm gonna go because I'm working on a 63 set, and I always want to see if there's any 41 play ball lurking around. Well, I found some 1963 cards. Got to meet up with some friends. Had a good time. Walked around for a couple of hours, and all right. So at the same time, though, going back to 1963, I am winning a lot of cards with Greg Morris on eBay. Um, I would say I picked up roughly 120 cards in the last 2 weeks from Greg Morris. So all of a sudden we get to last weekend, and I'm telling you guys, yeah, I'm going out to Palm Springs. I live 2 hours from Palm Springs, so it's not like it's next door. And I'm kind of like, I wake up. Oh, and I had also one of the cards I'm going to show you today. I had just won a card auction from Memory Lane, and I'm like going, all right, I've started to spend a lot of money, and I know what's going to happen. I'm going to wake up really early on a Saturday. I've been busy the last couple of weeks at the office, and I'm like, and I'm going to drive 2 hours to Palm Springs, get there at 10 o'clock, walk around like a zombie because I'm still tired from the previous card shows. And I also suffer from flat feet. So if I'm on my feet for a few hours, my dogs start to hurt. So I was like going, you're going to walk in there thinking that you're going to see some guy's going to have 12 different 1941 play ball graded cards in the price you want. And there's going to be a bunch of vintage there. That's always the vision. And I go, I don't want to drive all the way out there and like a half hour later go, oh God, I'm done. Like I said, I was tired. And so I'm going to be honest, because of my age, I just said, you know what? I'm not going. I've done good enough the past 2 weeks. I know I said that I wanted to go to a card show every week, but damn it, I just can't do it. So that was my big epiphany over the weekend of, you, personally, I can't do a card show every week. Can I go to several big card shows a year or decent sized card shows? Card shows, absolutely. But trying to go to card shows 3 weeks in a row, big card shows that just isn't going to work for me. So no, I did not go to the Palm Springs show, you guys. So when they have another one, hopefully I can tell you all about it. But I do plan on going to some shows in October and in November. So we'll see how that goes. Wow. All right, I've rambled. What are we going to do today? I've got some card pickups, 1963 tops, 1941 play ball, and I've got a weird card that I bought just because when you're a card collector, you start buying different things that you didn't plan on. All right, so let's turn the camera around and I'll show you what I got. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm going to throw you guys a curveball right away. Yep, I bought a hockey card. This is probably the first hockey card I have bought since like 1993, maybe 94. But this is one of my favorite players. It is a 1987-88 O-Pee-Chee Luc Robitaille, a rookie card. It's funny. I wanted this card years and years and years ago, and I never bought it. And finally, honestly, it's been a good 30 years and now all of a sudden I go, let me find one. And I found this PSA 8 at a great price. And luckily, hockey cards, at least this hockey card, doesn't cost as much as a vintage baseball card. But Luc Robitaille is one of my favorite athletes in the world. I've had the great fortune of meeting him on several occasions. What a kind gentleman. You know, hockey players are the nicest athletes out there. And Luc Robitaille is definitely epitome of that. Every time I see him, I have my picture taken with him and the Stanley Cup. Like I said, I've met him a few times over the years, and he's just a real sweet guy. And love having this in my collection. Some of you might be going, so what? You know, we're noticing you're buying some football cards, some Rams cards. Now you're buying some hockey cards. Yeah, I'm kind of delving a little into, I'm Dodger card collector, but I love my Los Angeles teams, the Dodgers, the Rams, the Lakers, the Kings. And I want a little bit of representation of some of those teams in my collection. So you're going to start seeing some Kings cards, some Rams cards, eventually a Lakers card. I am staring at a couple right now. But for now, we're going to start with this rookie card from Luc Robitaille. All right, next up are my winnings from Greg Morris. I've been buying, I'm working on a 1963 set. And I had decent luck with him the past few weeks. And so I think this is about 50 cards. And the trouble they go to pack these things for us. So, all right, there's my first batch. Here comes my second batch. Let's take a look at these. Let's see. Well, we'll start here. Gene Green. There's going to be some people you don't know in here, that's for sure. There's some high numbers. Sam Mele, the manager of the Minnesota Twins. I think he took them to the World Series in 1965. Billy Odell. Eddie Fisher. I remember Eddie Fisher. I think he played for the Angels in the early 70s. Eddie Fisher. Larry Osborne. Walt Bond of the Cleveland Indians. So far, I've heard a couple of these names, but I don't know much about him. Jerry Adair. I think I remember him as being one of Dick Williams' coaches on the A's in the early 70s. Felix Torres of the Angels. I do like those LA Angel caps back then. They had the halo on the top as well. Rob Taylor, Milwaukee Braves. And I'm never going to get this guy's... Bill Monbouquet, I'm going to say. Every time I get his card, I'm always like, how do you pronounce his name? Bill Monbouquet of the Boston Red Sox. Carroll Hardy, Houston Colt 45s. Jack Schaefer North, Cleveland Indians. Here's a guy I've heard of. Wally Post, Cincinnati Reds. Why is it when it's a guy I know, I actually think the card is nicer? But that's a nice photo of Wally Post. I like those Reds uniforms back then. Jim Coker, San Francisco Giants catcher. Jack Kralik, Minnesota Twins. Johnny Collison, Philadelphia Phillies. There's one guy I've heard of. That's interesting. That looks like Fenway Park in the background. When were the Phillies playing the Red Sox? No, that probably can't be, because that's not the Green Monster. So maybe I think that's the Polo Grounds. One of you out there knows. It's probably the Polo Grounds, actually. Let's see. Johnny Orsino, Baltimore Orioles. Another Giants catcher, Ed Bailey. John Shivey of the Washington Senators. Ken Johnson, Houston Colt 45. I like those Colt 45 hats. Don Schwal of the Pirates. And Chet Nichols, the Boston Red Sox. I think most of these cards are excellent. The mint. Doc Edwards. I won these from two separate Greg Morris auctions over a week. Since when you bid with Greg Morris, you have 7 days to pay. So that allows you to continue to look for cards just to keep the shipping down. So I won 50 or 51 cards. I paid $5 shipping. Oh, I didn't know I won this one. Pitching leaders. That's so funny. Ralph Terry is in here along with Hall of Famer Jim Bunning, Camilo Pascal. Let's see. What's on the back? Pitching leaders. All right. Barry Shetron of the Senators. Here's a guy I know. Roger Craig. Some of you know him as the Giants manager. Some of you know him as a New York Met or a St. Louis Cardinal. I will always know him as a Brooklyn and LA Dodger. I think he's technically one of the older Dodger players. No, I'm sorry. I think he just passed away. Take that back. So I was going to say he's one of the older living players. Harry Kraft of the Houston Colt 45. I do not know who this guy is. I'm going to have to look him up, but he's the manager. Jim Landis, White Sox. Ruben Amaro. Ruben Amaro Jr., his son, is talked about a lot on that sitcom, The Goldbergs. I think he went to high school with one of the Goldberg kids. And his kid, I think, became the GM of the Phillies. I could be wrong. Barney Schultz with the Cubs. Jose Tartabull. I don't think that's any relation to Danny Tartabull, but there's Jose Tartabull. Felix Mantilla of the Red Sox. I remember him more on the Milwaukee Braves. Don Hoke. It's the Don Hoke that used to play for the Dodgers. Yeah, and the Reds and the Pirates. Now he's on the Phillies by this point. Don Hoke. Phil Linz. I need some of my Yankee friends to tell me the harmonica story. I think it was him and Joe Pepitone and Yogi Berra I think Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford were messing around also in that one. Milt Pappas, still on the Orioles. A couple of years away from being traded to the Reds for Frank Robinson, but obviously that hadn't happened yet. What little I can see with these eyes of mine, because I'm not looking through the camera at this point, he's roughly like a 500 pitcher. Milt Pappas. Jimmy Pearsall, Washington Senators, from the movie Fear Strikes Out. I saw that movie once. It was actually pretty good. I think Carl Malden played Jimmy Pearsall's dad. Well, let's see. Earl Francis of the Pirates. Earl Francis. John Gorel of the Twins. Yeah, here's a guy that's about to get traded. Ernie Broglio. Pretty soon after this photo was taken. What card number is he? Card 313. He was eventually traded for Lou Brock. I'm sure there are people out there talking about that still to this day. Haywood Sullivan. I liked those A's uniforms back then. They had nice uniforms. I never knew they had these until I started collecting cards. I'm so used to the green and the yellow. Haywood Sullivan, I think, went on to become the GM of the Red Sox. Another name I always get wrong, Tony Cloninger of the Braves. For some reason, I have a lot of cards from this guy. So he must have pitched a lot through the 60s because I feel like I have several cards of his. Pedro Ramos of the Indians. Indians had nice uniforms back then. I like those unis. Ken Aspromonte, the Cubs. I know at one point he was on the Dodgers. Yeah, he was already bouncing around by this point. Ken Aspromonte. I believe he becomes the manager of the Indians. Oh, I forgot I won this card. Luis Aparicio of the Orioles. So there's Luis Aparicio. He had just been traded over from the White Sox. Let's see, a few more. Ken Retzer of the Senators. I don't know why when I see the Senators, I keep thinking those are the Red Sox, but nope. Washington Senators. Excuse me. Denver LeMaster. Ted Boesfield of the Kansas City A's. Here's a card I didn't learn about until I started watching YouTube. Don Landrum. That's not Don Landrum. That's Ron Santo. That photo is of Ron Santo. They messed up. They never fixed it. It's his record on the back, but that's Ron Santo. I think that's an interesting one. Okay, I knew he'd put the best card for last. This is the second to last card. Joe J of the Reds. Joey J. He'd already been around the block by that point. And the last card, Hall of Famer Frank Robinson. That's a good-looking Frank Robinson card. Nice back, card number 400. So those are my 1963 Topps pickups. And I'll probably give you some stats for those in the next video. Let's move on. And the last card for today is a 1941 play ball Gene Moore in a PSA 8. I won this card from the Memory Lane auction house. There were 3 different cards. There was a Chuck Klein card. Somebody else, I forgot who it was. I think Mo Arnovich, that's who it was. And this card, Gene Moore, and the starting bid was kind of high. And I go, well, I'm going to just bid on all 3. I know I'm not going to win any of them, and I'm not going to bid. I'm not going to throw in an additional bid. And the other 2 cards definitely sold extremely high. This card never budged. I was the only person to put a bid on it. And so I won this card. And I'm pretty happy with it. Gene Moore, he played 14 seasons in the majors with the Reds and the Cardinals and the Braves, the Dodgers, the Senators, the St. Louis Browns. His dad, Gene Sr., he pitched for the Pirates and the Reds also between 1910 and 1912. When you have a 14-year career, there's really, you'd like to kind of throw something out there that he did. And I guess the one thing I can say is on May 1st, he was facing Pittsburgh's Waite Hoyt. And Moore made Forbes Field history. That's the baseball stadium in Pittsburgh, for those of you that don't know, for becoming the first left-handed batter to launch a home run over the stadium's distant left field wall, as well as the first to clear its then 11-year-old 24-foot high scoreboard. And I guess 1 year later, he'd become the first and only player to perform that feat twice. So that's our little trivia on Gene Moore. This makes card number 60 for me in the set. I am now down to 12 more for the 1941 play ball set. And I'm staring at a couple. I don't know what'll happen. Every time I say I'm hitting a wall, I seem to find cards. So maybe I'll just keep saying that till I finish this series. We'll see. It's going to get hard. That's all I can tell you. All right, you guys, if you stuck around this long, thanks so much for hanging out. And we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game, today. If you and I are out of dollars and cents,
oh honey, we can always share a little hole in the fence.
it's a beautiful day for the ladies. So throw all your dishes away. We're gonna cheer